Coming at you live, coming at you live. It is your boy Skillz with a brand new, long-awaited Skillz on Sports, where if you want hard-hitting sports knowledge and facts, you are in the wrong place. What you get here is me going on and on about the hot topics in the world of sports with a little bit of random trivia thrown in. I'm here today. It's been a while since our last show, and it's really unfortunate that I'm here today. The reason I'm here today is because of the passing of the great, legendary, giant outfielder Willie Mays, who passed away yesterday, as I'm sure you've heard by now. 93 years old, did it all, legendary here in the Bay Area, legendary back where he started his major league career in New York, probably legendary in many other spots throughout the country, if not the world. The guy was a freaking beast on the field, and he remained a huge figure in the Giants organization from pretty much the day he retired from baseball, pretty much all the way up until he passed away. He had stature that no one else in that organization could ever hope of matching. Not even Barry Bonds could match the stature of Willie Mays for what he meant to that franchise during the almost 20 years he played there. His passing, it's the loss. Even though I obviously was born 7 years after he last played Major League Baseball, I feel it. And different shows I've listened to throughout the day, podcasts, things like that, it's felt. Because if even if you didn't see him play, even if you were too young to truly appreciate how great he was, you know someone, you grew up with someone, you were raised by someone in your life did watch Willie play, whether it's a father, an uncle, maybe some sort of other older figure, male figure, even female figure. I don't want to exclude the women here. Someone knew Willie and was very quick to pass along just how great he was. Same way my generation will tell anyone just how great Ken Griffey Jr. was during the 90s and on into the 2000s. And when you drop names like Mike Trout and you drop names like Ken Griffey, and you have to understand that even I can say this, even though having never watched Willie play, I've seen and heard enough about him, read enough, studied enough about him to know that he was even greater than them, which is saying something, because Ken Griffey Jr. in the 90s was a force. Mike Trout in the 10s was a force, and Mike Trout's the best comparison I can make to Mays in terms of his all-around game, because Jr. didn't run, he didn't steal bases the way Mays did. Mays was a 4-time steals champion. Griffey didn't have to steal a lot of bases, so he never really did. He stole a share, but we're talking about Mays as my daughter's air fryer cooking goes off behind me. We're talking about Mays, talking about a guy who was 30-30 a couple of times back before it was popular. In fact, only one player before Willie Mays had ever stolen 30 bases and homer 30 times in a season, and that was the immortal, I did write this down, I do prepare for my show sometimes, Ken Williams of the 1922 St. Louis Browns, who later became the Baltimore Orioles. You talk about a guy in Mays, and you talk about a guy like Trout, who hits for power, hits for average, plays exceptional defense, obviously on the outfield before all the injuries started to hit him after age 30. And you talk about a guy who still, as great as Trout had been throughout the 10s into this decade before the injuries hit, still could not quite catch up to Willie Mays. And I can't really compare him, for you younger people out there, I can't really compare him to anybody else. No one else has a resume even half as good as Willie, who's out there on the field today, especially not playing the center field position. And Ken Griffey Jr. was close. The way Griffey would change a game with his bat, change a game with his glove, and the charisma, the personality, the popularity, just as the internet was starting to come about in the mid-90s. Griffey was probably as close as anyone's come to being Mays in all those areas. And even still, Griffey, who had his share of horrible injuries after he turned 30 and could not quite reach that same status that he was before, even he falls a little short of Mays' status. All right, Mays hit 50 home runs in a season 10 years apart, once at age 25 I believe it was, and again at age 35. And He did it in an era pre-expansion. There was a few expansion teams at the time, maybe like 4, but not like today where there's 30 teams where you can, you have watered down pitching in tiny ballparks. And I'm not trying to take away from anything anyone else has done. I'm just saying, in Mays' day, hitting 50 home runs in a season, actually, I mean, it meant way more then than it does now. These guys just simply didn't do it at that level. There was a stat, I think it was the timeline, I believe, cut off around somewhere in the late 1900s, where there had been just as many 50 home run seasons prior to that in the 100 years of Major League Baseball as there have been in like the 10 years after that. All right, so Mays was hitting 50 home runs in a season back when it really stood out in a ballpark in Candlestick Park. And I don't want to keep heaping, because Candlestick has taken a share of abuse for all the win and all the home runs that it cost Willie Mays over the years. And I'm not going to sit here and go over all those random things that we'll never really know the truth about. But I will tell you this: Mays hitting 50 home runs in a season in Candlestick Park, that's an accomplishment. Playing half your games at the stick. And this is pre-renovation, and it was even worse pre-renovation from what I understand than it was post. So Mays, what I'm trying to tell you is, no one that I've seen, maybe Barry Bonds in the second half of his career, and even then, it's just something, the greatness of Bonds, just comparing him to Mays, who of course Mays is Bonds' godfather. Mays played with Bobby Bonds for 4 years in the 1960s and 70s. Barry had, as we all know, Barry had the charisma of maybe a watermelon seed. Barry had the charisma of maybe a broken brick, as my daughter slams the door to her room, not maliciously. Bonds control the game. Bonds controlled the game in a different way than Mays did. Okay, Bonds was a great left fielder with his glove. He did not have a great arm. Mays did. I'll have more on that in a little bit. Bonds, batting eye, was sometimes too good for his own good. Sometimes when there were whispers that Bonds should have been more aggressive in key situations when pitchers were pitching around him, that the pitch does not have to be right down the middle to swing at it. Maybe a couple inches up, couple inches off. You're still great enough. You're still Barry Bonds. You're still great enough to smack it down the line, get a base hit, do something. You're taking the power away from them. All right, they're trying to control. They're trying to control the bat. You're taking the bat back from them. Mays did it in a different way. Mays just beat you with his bat over and over again. He was smarter than you. Everyone who talks about him, who knew him, will testify how smart Mays was. And I don't know if I believe this story, that he was one time even calling a game from the outfield to the pitcher's mound, relaying signs back and forth from the catcher to the pitcher from center field. I don't know if I believe that, but I do believe, just based on everything everyone said about him, that if anyone was going to do it, it would be Willie. If anyone had the ability to do it, it would be Willie. Willie was, by all accounts that I know, and obviously I never met him, close I ever came to meeting him was standing outside the statue of him at Oracle Park. But all these other testimonials, all this other feedback that I've heard, it can't be wrong. Willie's brain was probably best of his time, to put it mildly. And take that combination of physical talent, take the combination of hunger, take the combination of personality, take the combination of intellect, coupled with his athletic ability, his toughness, the man's handshake. Everyone testified. I've heard stories well into his 80s how his handshake would just you were shaking a man's hand right there. And you take all those elements, and even Barry, with all his accomplishments as a San Francisco Giant, especially, just falls a little short of Willie Mays. He just does. And not helping his cause is all the allegations, all the legal troubles he went through while he was playing. None of that was happening to Willie Mays. Willie Mays' probably the worst thing he ever did was running to Bobby Bonds in the outfield at one time. You've seen the play where they both hit the wall in center field. So it's a great loss to baseball. I'm gonna go on some more about Willie. I'm gonna try to keep my emotions together, because even though I never met him, even though I didn't know him obviously, and I never saw him play, this is, as a Giants fan, a huge loss for the organization. Because Willie, it's kind of like, I'll put it like this. A couple years ago when Queen Elizabeth passed away, and right away, initially when I heard the news, it was, okay, oh wow. But as more and more stories poured in, it really started to sink in that Queen Elizabeth was gone. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I got a little emotional. It wasn't because of any love or admiration I had for the Queen. It wasn't because of anything special that I felt for her, or any of her achievements, or anything like that she had done, or impact she had made on me personally, or anyone else that in the world. But the reason why I teared up a little bit after Queen Elizabeth passed was because ever since I could remember, from a little boy all the way to that day, she was there. She was a constant presence. She was in the news at least once a week. They were always talking about things going on in the royal family. Queen Elizabeth this, Queen Elizabeth that. Watched her age, watched her lose a husband later on. She lost a daughter-in-law. And for those of you who think she was behind that, I'm going to politely disagree. She had to deal with the falling out of one of her grandchildren and other things, I'm sure, that were not pleasant to deal with. But she was front and center. She always seemed to be graceful. She always seemed to be in good spirits, at least in front of cameras. Now, obviously, things are different behind closed doors. But she presented something to the world. I mean, I got used to seeing her. I got used to the world with Queen Elizabeth in it. And then all of a sudden, she wasn't. And it just kind of brings you back to where none of us are here permanently. We're all here on borrowed time. And Willie Mays, his loss, because he's, ever since I've been following Giants baseball, which has been since 1990, he's always been there. He's always been a presence on that club, whether it's in the dugout or doing spring training stuff, or he's up in the he's with the executives as because he held the position of a special assistant, and I would like to think they did take advantage of his knowledge at times. He was in the parade when they won World Series. He was honored with other outfielders. He was honored with other people connected to the Giants. He was honored on his birthday. They had him out there for his 92nd birthday last year. I know they had him out there for his 90th. I don't remember if it was last year. But I know they had him out there for his 90th. They drove him around the field in an open top car, and he looked about as well as you could expect a 90-year-old to look. Seemed like everything was good. I mean, you just never. We know in our minds that even great people, great legends of sports and any other walk of life in your area, our relatives, they're not going to be around forever. They're going to pass away one day. You never know when that's going to be. You never think about when it's coming. You just know that it's coming. But you just, as each year passes by and they're still there, it's easy to just say, it's easy. I don't want to say taken for granted, but you get comfortable. You start to forget the fact that, hey, they're each year that passes by, they're getting a little bit closer to the end. And Willie, we just never thought that the end was coming. Although I will tell you this, and I'm not trying to act like I'm clairvoyant or anything. I do that plenty of other times, like when I correctly guessed the 49ers were going to the Super Bowl in 2019 and 2023, but that's another story. I'm not going to sit here and say I was clairvoyant when the statement came out. I think it was this past Monday, that the game coming up tomorrow, Thursday the 20th, June 20th, at Rickwood Field, that game coming up tomorrow, which is kind of like an honoring of the Negro League, sort of, that the Giants and Cardinals are going to play there. And Willie Mays announced through a statement, this wasn't his words coming out on camera or in the microphone or anything. This was a statement which we now know that there's basically no chance he wrote or even contributed to, that Willie Mays was regrettably not going to be present for that. This is Monday. Now, 2 days later, he had passed away. And so we know now, chances are, that he was not, probably even as recently as Monday, he probably knew at that time he didn't have much time left. It was probably clear that at that time to his people close to him that he did not have much time left. And they at least released a statement to kind of like thwart, I don't want to say thwart attention, but basically just to kind of like keep people from wondering, hey, where's Willie? I guess they didn't want anyone to worry to take away from this game, and it probably didn't suspect he was going to die 2 days later after that statement. But in any event, it's clear now that he was near the end, probably had been for a little bit of time at least, and the end caught up with him on Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. And how fitting, 6 plus 18 equals 24, 24, 24. Willie did pass away. It was announced on the news around 5 o'clock. I was visiting my aunt and my cousin, and the news came in across the ticker first, and then it was announced that Willie Mays had died. And at first it didn't really hit me, but the more I thought about it, I realized it was a Queen Elizabeth type thing, that Willie, who'd always been there, he'd always been there, and now he wasn't. And yeah, it's gonna be an adjustment. It's gonna be, even though he'd been around the team less and less the last couple of years, somehow, at least ever since Ted Williams died in 2002, when it was clear that Willie was the greatest living ball player. Joe DiMaggio held that title, at least I believe he was the one who gave himself that title, held that title until he passed away in 1999. And then Ted Williams had it for a little while, and now after Ted Williams died in 2002 was unquestionably Willie Mays, greatest living ball player, living legend. He was our legend. He did not strike me as the kind of person who would come around a team, who would spend time in a dugout with all these people a third of his age, who would do that unless he wanted to be there. It's not like a guy like Willie Mays didn't have anything else to do. I'm pretty sure he could have been doing anything, but he wanted to be around this team, and I think the team wanted him around just as much, especially in those years when they weren't winning, the pre-World Series years. I'm talking like the 2000s, especially the later half of that decade. Willie, and everyone who's I've seen interviews about, says that he was a presence all the way into old age, that he still commanded that same respect, that he still knew the game as well as ever. No one ever said anything bad about him. I mean, we've heard stories about, I mentioned Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams. There's been plenty bad said about them. I'm not going to get into that here. But I don't remember anyone ever saying anything bad about Willie Mays. As a player, as a person, as a liaison for the Giants, past and present, this was someone, unlike Barry, who no one has anything good to say about most of the time. Willie was beloved. He was. You see this shirt I'm wearing? That's what he represented. There's a photo out on Twitter today. The Giants dugout. Forgive me, people. Forgive me. I knew this was going to happen. There's a picture out on Twitter today of Bob Melvin, of course, the present Giants manager, in the dugout with Mays' 24 jersey in the background. They've already got patches. How many times do you see that happen during the season? When a player, when an old-time player passes away, what do they usually do? They wait until the next season, and then they'll honor him with a patch, or honor him with something around the ballpark, or they'll honor him in some way. No. Willie, he's getting his honor right now. They're wearing those 24s on their shirts right now. And it wouldn't surprise me if they wore them all the way through next season too. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. He deserved it. And you're talking about a guy who 660 home runs, third most in baseball history when he retired, behind just Hank Aaron, who had 713, was still playing, and behind Babe Ruth, who had 714. And today, if I have my count right, Willie is 6. I want to say he's behind now, along with those two, Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, and Albert Pujols. So he's, if I have my count right, I didn't double check this, but I'm pretty sure he's number 6 now, which is still not shabby. 660 home runs, and all but 19 of them came as a San Francisco Giant. The last few came, of course, with the New York Mets. And one of the things I wanted to do with this show today was talk about, I don't want to just rehash the same things that everyone else is saying. I've seen and heard a few shows about Willie Mays, I want to talk about some things that you may or may not already know about, that you likely do not know about, that you likely do not even think about. And let's start with this. Did you know that Willie Mays, do you know who he was traded for when he was traded from the Giants to the Mets in 1971? I'm listening. No? Okay, I'll tell you. He was traded for a swingman pitcher named Charlie Williams, who had been in the major leagues with the Mets for that 71 season. That's when he came up. Was traded to the Giants for Mays in 72. That's how far his stock has fallen, that he was traded for a young pitcher and $50,000. A young no-name pitcher and $50,000 was all it took to get Mays to the Giants at that point in time. But it was also because the Giants wanted to have Mays in his career back in New York, where he could be appreciated by the fans who saw him start out his career in New York. It was a combination of things, and the Mets didn't have obviously much to send back to the Giants, even though they did make the World Series the next year. Really, do you want anything from the Mets? I know I don't. So this guy Charlie Williams, who ended up playing 7 major league seasons, make that 8 major league seasons, and he finished up his career. I wrote this down, people, bear with me as I read my chicken scratch. He played 72 through 78 with the Giants, 268 games, 33 starts, 23 wins, 22 losses, and a 3.97 ERA. He passed away in January of 2015. It's unthinkable that that's all it took to get Mays, but by then Mays was in his 40s. He you've heard the stories about him stumbling in the outfield, which have been kind of exaggerated a little bit in the 73 World Series when the Mets lost to the A's. I want to talk about another couple things about Willie Mays. The reason why he didn't get to 700 home runs, you may or may not know that he missed nearly 2 full seasons in the Army, 52 and 53, after debuting in the Major League Baseball in 51. And that followed 3 years in the Negro Leagues. And you may have heard recently that the Negro League statistics from 1920 through 1948, when they were, for lack of a better word, reliable, were incorporated into the Major League Baseball record books, which gave Willie Mays 10 extra career hits from his time with the 1948 Birmingham Black Barons. He did play 49 and 50, but the records from those eras were not deemed complete enough to incorporate to the record books. And so Willie Mays went from 3,283 career hits to 3,293 career hits. I don't think he changed spots on the all-time all-time list, though. He did not hit a home run that year. He was like what, 17 years old, so he didn't even hit a home run. It's a miracle he got the 10 hits he got. So home run total didn't change. Mays played from 49 through 50 in the Negro Leagues. Finally gets signed by the Giants in 51. New York Giants, that is. 20 years old. Gets off to a slow start. Now you think about the Giants outfielders of today. Think about guys like Luis Matos especially, who, despite getting off to a very warm, very hot, even start this season, found himself in the minor leagues after a couple weeks of slump. Mays, it's crazy. I'm not trying to compare Matos to Mays by any stretch of the imagination, but if Mays had the cold stretch he had as a 20-year-old rookie in 1951, the cold stretch he had that season to start his career, he would not have stuck around these Giants in the year 2024. Farhan would have sent him down. Farhan may have even kept him down. But management at that time gave Mays the chance to adjust, to work through his struggles. Hello, hint, 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 Farhan, hello, hello. I don't have a lot of respect for Farhan, in case you don't know. But I digress. Mays was given every opportunity, within reason, to pull himself together, and he did. And he was that year's Rookie of the Year. This is 4 years after Jackie Robinson pioneered black players into baseball, was the first Rookie of the Year. Mays comes in and becomes the same award winner in 51, deservedly so. Then he has to go to the Army for most of 52 and all of 53. Comes back in 54. What does he do? Wins the goddamn MVP. Helps the Giants win their last World Series in New York. How about that? How you like them apples? Telling you, greatness. And here's the thing that's been bothering me on a less tragic level. Here's what's been bothering me. Every outlet that I have come across, outlets that I've used to do research for this show, outlets that I've used for entertainment, have referenced Willie Mays' 24 All-Star appearances. Okay? Why are they omitting the reason why Willie Mays, who only played 23 Major League seasons, was able to be a 24-time All-Star? So I'll tell you, since no one else apparently is willing to, from 1959 through 1962, Major League Baseball had 2 All-Star games, under the guise of giving the players more money, but also for lining their own pockets too, let's be real. So Mays was a perennial All-Star annually from 54 all the way through 73, even though he was not the same player at the end. He was still he's popular enough to get on those teams. But he's playing in those All-Star games twice a year for 4 years too. That's how you get in 24 All-Star games across 20 seasons. They were playing 2 All-Star games a year from 59 through 62, until the players eventually got something happened with the money. They got approved to get bonuses or whatever, and they went back to just 1. So that's how Willie Mays won all those All-Star games, or went to all those All-Star games. Willie Mays won 12 Gold Gloves each year from 1957 through 1968. Here's the thing. Gold Gloves were not a thing until 1957, by which time Mays had already played 4 other full Major League seasons, 51, 54, 55, 56. There's a good chance he could have won 15 Gold Gloves had the award existed prior to that. Let me take a sip on that. I'm eating Skinny Pop popcorn and Diet Pepsi. Skillz on Sports, we eat on camera. So with Willie Mays passing, that leaves Luis Aparicio, the former White Sox, Red Sox, and Orioles shortstop of the same time period as Mays, as the oldest living Hall of Famer. He is 90 years young. And you think about, remember in 2020, we went through a period where we lost 9 baseball Hall of Famers in like 9 months. And I wrote them down here. From like mid 20 through early 21, we lost Lou Brock, Bob Gibson, Al Kaline, Joe Morgan, Phil Niekro, Tom Seaver, Hank Aaron, Tommy Lasorda, and Don Sutton. They just got wiped out. The Hall of Fame, because the Hall of Famers show up to, when they can, to show up to the ceremonies for the new inductees, and it's always great to see, at least from my youth, I love to see guys like Andre Dawson and Greg Maddux and John Smoltz show up there. I like to see Chipper Jones. I recently heard Chipper Jones is not a very nice guy, but let's put that aside for the moment. Seeing him there, up until he passed away, Kirby Puckett would show up. We see guys like Jim Thome show up, and it's always great to see the legendary Hall of Famers. And then you see, those are the guys from my time period, and then you go a little further, and you see the guys from the 70s and the 60s, guys like Mike Schmidt, guys like Hank Aaron, before he passed away. See guys like Niekro before he passed away. Lou Brock would come out. See guys like Dennis Eckersley, who was, he was more of a Hall of Famer in the 80s. When he really, 80s and 90s when he really set, but he was around the 70s. Guys from that period, great to see them. And then you get the old guys, the true OG Hall of Famers, like the Mayses, like the Gibsons, until he passed away, Stan Musial. Those guys, the true OG legends of the game, who are like royalty. And so what I would like to see, because there's only going to be so many legends. There's only so many legends of the game. There's not going to be a Willie Mays in every generation. There just isn't. We have to celebrate the great players that we have today. We have to celebrate what we have, and unfortunately, we're going to have to probably lower the bar. A guy like Mike Trout is when he goes in the Hall of Fame, which is probably going to happen in the next 10 to 15 years, He's going to go in. His numbers aren't going to be anywhere near Willie Mays' numbers, especially not now with all the injuries he's had. But he was at a pace where he was going to get hit close to 600 home runs at one point. He was going to have like 500 steals at one point. He was winning all the Gold Gloves. We're not going to see too many true statistical or even generational legends outside of one day maybe Ohtani enter the Hall of Fame. And Ohtani is a very rare case, but he's going to, at the rate he's going, I think even if he were to stop playing now, I think he's done enough as a pitcher and as a hitter and as a source of popularity. He's probably done enough now to get in. If they were waived a 10-year rule, because this is only his 7th year in Major League Baseball. But Ohtani, as long as he reaches the 10 years and there's no like rules holding him back, criteria holding him back like that, I think he's done enough to get into the Hall of Fame. I mean, he's a generational talent. He's a more than generational talent. You don't get guys who stop traffic, for lack of a better term, like an Ohtani, like a Barry Bonds, like a Willie Mays, like a Babe Ruth. You don't get guys like that every so often, but every so often. And we just lost one. The Hall of Fame, I would like to see it loosen up the strings a little bit, replenish itself. The great players of today, yes, they are not going to measure up to the great players of yesterday, but they are great to those of us who are watching them, and the generation below me, who does not have a Barry Bonds to compare them to, does not have King Griffey Jr. to compare them to, but greatness from every era is going to be relative. I don't want to see anybody, for example, who are some examples of guys we could put in. I've already mentioned Trout a bunch of times. Guys like Paul Goldschmidt, does he have generational numbers or ability? No, but he's been a great player for most of his career with the Cardinals and the Diamondbacks. He's going to have over, if not close to 400 home runs. He's going to have a ton of RBI. He's been a rock at first base. I think he's even been a Gold Glover. He's a guy that I want to see get in, because he's the best of his time. It's not his fault his time didn't produce any legends. It's not his fault that his time didn't measure up in terms of individual talents the way, let's say, my time did when we had the likes of Ricky Henderson and Bonds later on, and once he kind of found himself, guys like Mike Piazza, guys like Cal Ripken. You're not going to find those just everywhere. They don't grow on trees. You can't plant seeds and have them sprout up. All right. So yeah, what I am saying, I've been dancing around the term, but yeah, I am asking the Hall of Fame to lower its standards a little bit. The voters to lower their standards a little bit, so that the great players of today do get recognized. We need a full Hall of Fame. I'd rather not have, because if history repeats itself, what's going to happen is all these great players eventually will pass away. There's going to be like four Hall of Famers coming out to the ceremonies. Because if we keep the standards where they've been, if the voting, and granted the voting has loosened up in recent years, the last like 15, 20 years, the voting has loosened up since they made some changes there. But I think still we have ways to go when guys like Paul Goldschmidt are not surefire, they're not locks, even though they've been among the best of their position, right? You have guys like, let's say, down in LA, Mookie Betts, who even all the great things he's done, he's not even a lock for the Hall of Fame, even though he's got my vote, that's for damn sure. Well, guys like Max Scherzer, all he's done, he's not even a lock by a lot of people. There's maybe like 3 locks right now. Verlander is probably one of them. And listen, I'm sorry, guys, I'm winning 300 games anymore. That's blame the analytics for that. Blame the analytics for the lack of 300 game winners, because pitchers aren't staying in games long enough to get these wins. And the home run hitters is dying down because of all the strikeouts, because everyone throws 100 miles an hour now, and it's just not good. It's just not realistic to have guys hitting 50, 40 home runs a year like they once did. It's just not going to happen at the same rate it once did. You got PEDs out of the game. This is what you wanted, right? You got PEDs out of the game. So we can't judge current batch of players if they fail to get to 578 home runs like the Killer Brews and the other guys the previous generations did. If they're still the best of their time and they're still putting up numbers that compare to those guys who are in the Hall of Fame, if they are still considered stars, if they are still winning, making differences in games, we need to recognize that. We need to recognize them. There is not going to be another Willie Mays. There isn't. No one exactly is going to be like him. Now, I kind of got off track there, but basically the point I was trying to make was Willie's greatness is kind of like the bar for Hall of Famers is going to be, it's always going to be, I expect it to be high, but not absurdly high, because how many Willie Mays are you going to find out there? You're not going to find many. That's how special of a guy he was. And the truth is, I may cut out that whole segment too. I collect Topps baseball cards, and my 1997 Topps set, I bought a jumbo box, which came with, because the set came with a special Willie Mays insert set. I'm not sure what it was recognizing, because it wasn't like the anniversary of anything special that I can think of. But anyway, they were recognizing Willie Mays that year. And in this jumbo box was included a jumbo Willie Mays card. Now, mind you, in 1997, I was 17 years old. I didn't know anything from anything. I did not have internet access. I knew about Willie Mays and how great of a player he was. I did not, to some degree, but I did not really know the impact that he had, popularity-wise, what he did for the Giants franchise. A lot of things I've told you before, I certainly did not know at age 17. His card, I kept that card for about a year, and then I discarded it. No pun intended. I don't know what I did with it. I don't think I threw it in the garbage. I may have given it to someone. I honestly just don't even know what I did with that card, but I can tell you that for the last decade or so, I wish I still had it. It was too hard to store. It was nothing against Mays. It was just the card was like as big as a tablet, like a Amazon Fire tablet. It was that big, but it was I didn't have storage for that, and so I ultimately decided not to keep it. I really wish I had, from not just because Willie is gone now, but just from even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I started to appreciate more of the guys who came before the guys I watch now. I really wish I still had that card, but I still have the other insert cards of Willie Mays that came in that set, which were basically reprints of his previous Topps cards, his regular Topps cards. So I have that. I wish I had thought to bring them out here and show them to you, but I did not think that far ahead. What else do we want to talk about before I say goodbye to you? Okay, Willie's passing. There was an article on MLB.com that was discussing the game at Rickwood Field coming up on Thursday, 6:20, between the Giants and Cardinals. Rickwood Field, by the way, is in Birmingham, Alabama, and it used to be a Negro League stadium, and it also used to be a minor league baseball stadium for a time. It was a minor league stadium for the Birmingham Barons from 1981 to 1987. It's been greatly renovated for this. I don't know what they've been doing with it all the years between then and now, but it's been greatly renovated in anticipation of this game. It's just too bad. Now it's going to doubly serve as the home for the game, as well as a place to remember and pay tribute to Willie Mays passing. Now, there was an article about that game that referred to living Negro Leaguers in attendance, saying that there was over 150, and that 60 of them had confirmed they'd be in attendance. No, there's not 150 living Negro Leaguers. I think what they meant were maybe direct descendants of Negro Leaguers. There are only 2 now living known players to have played in the Negro Leagues as we know them. Unless what that article was referring to was because the Negro Leagues kept going into 1960, but they were not as organized as they had been once Major League Baseball integrated black people into their sport. So if we're talking about players from the from 1948, when the Negro Leagues pretty much changed, which was the year after Jackie Robinson entered Major League Baseball, and I think Larry Doby entered that year too. If we're talking about players who played in 1948, there's only 2 left from everything I've been able to dig up, and that's Bill Greason, who's 99 years old, and that's Ron Teasley, who's 97 years old. Now I can't speak to anyone from the years after that, but that's what I'm giving you. So if you can tell me different, please tell me different. I've searched, I've looked, I've double checked. And it's just, realistically, there just can't be that many players still alive from 1948, when the Negro Leagues, as we knew them, ceased to exist, and kind of like trailed off into an afterthought, sort of, in spite of the presence of Willie Mays and Hank Aaron and others who were still there. We talked about that. Okay, here's what I want to close the Willie Mays portion of this show with. My favorite Willie Mays story and plays is, it's not the catch with Bobby Bonds I mentioned earlier, where they both crashed into the wall at the same time. Not the over-the-shoulder catch in the '54 World Series where he robbed Vic Wertz and then threw the ball back in quickly to stop that runner from moving. My favorite Willie Mays, it's a story. I'm pretty sure it's not on film anywhere. It's a story he told that I heard for the first time about maybe 5 years ago, where someone was bragging to him or telling him about somebody hitting for the cycle, and Willie's response was, "Hitting for the cycle? Man, I almost threw for the cycle." Which was to say, Willie one day, according to him, threw out runners at first base, which must have doubled them off, I'm guessing. I'm pretty sure he couldn't have thrown them out running from the batter's box. Threw out a runner at third base, and threw out a runner at home plate. And he would have thrown out a runner at second base as well, had the second baseman, whoever that was, not bobbled the ball. He didn't field the ball cleanly, so he didn't get the out there at second base. Willie was proud of that. And I think that would have been so cool to have thrown for the cycle in one game. Man, to throw a runner out of every base, because some of these guys make it look easy, but it's not easy to throw accurately and strong to any base from any outfield position. I've played the outfield. In my youth, I had a decent arm. Nowhere near the level of, say, a Mays, but certainly, decent enough to where I got a couple outs here and there every year in my little amateur leagues. But yeah, throwing four guys out at any bases, and then you do it one at each base. On top of that, whoever that second baseman is, boy, I wish you had fielded that ball. I wish you had fielded that ball, just for the sake of getting really that cycle. And one day I'll look up and try to get more details on that. Maybe I'll share that with you. Maybe I won't. But I think and here's the other story I want to tell you. I want to tell you this story as well. My daughter's mother, God bless her, she did not know squat about baseball or really any professional sport until we got together back in 2002. And eventually we moved in together. And obviously I'm watching all the Giants games on what was then known as CSN Bay Area. And I remember, because you're going to hear the mentions of Willie Mays, you're going to hear the mentions of Willie McCovey. Even, over the years, you just hear those names over and over again as you watch Giants games, which is what happened to us. So one day she says to me, and I could tell she didn't want to say it. There was no hint there. Before we even go there, there wasn't racism behind it at all. It was just the case of the names. And she's dead serious, but she's really hesitant to ask because it's gonna sound silly. But she asked me, "Were Willie Mays and Willie McCovey two different people?" Oh my gosh, I couldn't help but laugh. I gave her a little kiss on the head. I was like, you're too cute. Yes, they're two different people. She just couldn't believe that the Giants for so long could have two guys named Willie in the outfield. Well, Willie McCovey played first base too, but he also played some left field. That the Giants could have two great players, both named Willie, both with the last name starting with M at the same time. It must have been like a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Alcindor thing, or a World Be Free, Lloyd Be Free thing, okay? That's what she was thinking. I laugh. I still think it's one of the cutest things I've ever seen to this day. And on that note, Willie Mays, who turned 93 on May 6th of this year, on behalf of me and on behalf of every Giants fan, past, present, future, we want to thank him for everything he did for that franchise on and off the field, what he represented. He represented this logo and all the future logos and prior logos. They couldn't have been done any better. Ambassador to the game, ambassador to the Giants. It's an all-around legend. And I'll say one last time on behalf of everyone, thank you, Willie. May you rest in peace. 93 years, you lived a great life. We're going to miss you. You will never, ever, ever be forgotten. I will personally never let them do anything to that wall that's out there in right field at Oracle Park in your honor. It will always be 24 feet in your honor. That statue isn't going anywhere. No other, the address, even though I really never liked the name 24 Willie Mays Plaza, I will not let them change that either. Where your imprint on today's game, your imprint on that park and on that team, it was already pretty much, you were never going to be, I mean, not that there was any chance that you were going to be forgotten, but if there was any chance of anything happening, like a remodeling to that field that was going to affect your legacy, or that was going to take away from, that was going to undo anything that was done in your name, in your honor, if any good has come from your passing, we can guarantee that none of those things will ever change until they one day, hundreds, decades and decades from now, move out of that park. And don't be surprised if they find somebody to take the whole wall with them. I know they'll take the statue. Maybe they'll take the whole entire wall with them too, whenever they move out of that park. So rest in peace, Willie. And his passing comes on the heels of the passing of Jerry West, NBA legend, died at 86 on June 12th. And then we have Bill Walton, who was not quite up to the level of those two, but was a legend in a whole different way, NBA legend, on the court and behind the microphone forever. And he passed away on May 27th. So we've lost 3 huge names in pro sports in just a short period of time, which is often how it goes. And I was going to definitely speak about West and definitely speak about Walton in one of my Skillz on Sports shows that I'm taking 6 decades to finally put out, and we'll save them for that show. But I just, Willie was too great of a figure, too big of a figure, too astronomical of a presence to my team to devote anything but an entire show directly to him. And that's what I did here today. And I hope you at least learned a couple things about him. And I hope you enjoyed Skillz on Sports, Willie Mays edition. We'll leave out the Skillz on Pills because that segment is usually for humorous purposes, and I don't feel it's appropriate time to be laughing. I mean, you know, a chuckle here and there, but I don't want to go out of my way to make you laugh at a time like this. So we'll forego Skillz on Skillz on Pills for now. This has been Skillz on Sports. I will have hopefully a full episode of Skillz on Sports covering every sport, or at least baseball, football, basketball, covering every recent topic, coming up hopefully by the weekend, no later. I'm working on it. I've been distracted. Please bear with me if you enjoy what I put out there. Thank you. Skillz, your boy.